You share with the younger kids when you got shot, the story of when you got shot?
Ouch.
Don't recommend it.
Don't recommend it.
Don't tease your cousins.
Who shot you?
Fred Hall,
Your cousin, right?
yeah.
His best friend.
And you're out rabbit hunting?
We was just above the farm there on those gray hills. I was just walking down on the point and I guess I scared the rabbit out and run between me and Fred who was down below me. He shot at the rabbit and shot me.
How old were you?
14.
And where did it go and where you laid
I got a
it?
lump, if you want to feel it. I got a
yeah.
lump right there.
You still have the bullet in you?
The bullet's down
Is it
here
a
under the
22?
third rib.
Dr. Frischnick found the trail when he did x-rays, when he
From my
went up
heart.
for another injury, years
From my heart.
after.
And
And
it
then,
went all around your body, right?
Went
Yeah.
out and hit the shoulder blade and come back down. And
hit his lungs and he
it
split
went through
blood.
my right lung. And he was taking x-rays and he said, "Slim, when have you had pneumonia?" And I said, "I've never had pneumonia." He says, "You got a scar through your right lung." You look on the x-ray and it was about that wide. I says, "That's where I was shot." I says, "Follow it." Well, he followed it around and come down with the bullets down here under the third rib. Still.
If I remember right too, the doctor told you there's scar tissue on your heart from it.
Or right by it? How close did it come to your heart?
Not a quarter of an inch.
How did you get
just have
home
to
after
let
you
us
got
know?
shot? How did you get home and what did the doc have you do?
What did he tell you to?
Well, they
Okay,
was out west.
tell him about, Sam, you telling Sam you were shot and so he jumped the, creek and came.
Fred went down and got my dad. He was bringing the
Yeah.
cows up the hill from down the meadow. Dad drove right up to me in the pickup and jumped in, and when we hit Sterling, why, he told Fred and Sam to get out and call in the Manti and have Lucien Sears or the doctor waiting for me at the doctor's office. So they called in Lucien Sears as the doctor. When we drove into town, I was sitting while I was leaving and I was bleeding out of my mouth. And we drove up to the doctor's office, which was down here above that Thurston's, we called it, that red and white store in the middle of there was, the doctor's office was upstairs. You had to go upstairs. And they let me out and I climbed the stairs. And I was bleeding, I was spitting blood and I was bleeding. But I climbed up those stairs. And Dr. Sears took me in his hospital room, laid me down on a bed and he had a blood pan and I was spitting blood. And he watched me for a little bit and he'd listen with his stethoscope and he could hear it gurgling. And that's because it had hit my lung. When I breathed, why it gurgled because there was a hole through my lung. But he thought it was blood. Thought he could hear it. And he stood there and I was laying on his bed and he looked at me and listened to me and he says, "Lad, you're a dead man." He says, "You're bleeding to death internally and there's nothing I can do." I'm I'm laying there waiting to die. After I'd laid there for about 3 hours, they decided to take me home. There was no hospital or anything. Took me down and they had told my mother or Adele was home, my sister. They were in the house. My dad and losing Sears took me by each arm and was walking me into the house. And Mother come running out and says, "What's the matter?" Dad says he's been shot, and she went flop. She passed out, and Adele come out, my sister, "What's the matter?" "He's been shot." She went flop. They took me in and laid me on Adele in the bedroom, laid me on the bed and says, "We got to take care of the women." When I had to bring the women to it, they both fainted. I was laying in there spitting blood. And finally, Lucian sat there all night, and I was bleeding, and I finally quit spitting blood. It was towards morning, and he talked to me, he'd keep talking to me. And then he told my mother was sitting there, well, they all were, because he figured I was dying, bleeding to death. It says if he who stopped bleeding, don't let him move. He says if that is clotted over, I don't want him to move and break that clot. They tied me to the bed. They took my arms and tied them out down to the springs. I think it was dish towels or something, tied my arms down. They run a sheet, run across and tied me down. Tied my legs out like that, down the bottom of the bed. I laid like that for 3 weeks. They fed me through a straw, so I'd suck. And
Were they afraid the bullet would move too? Was it close to your heart?
bullets still, I still
then-
carry the bullet down here.
And my brother got shot next to his heart, and they didn't let him move for a week either because they said it was so close to his heart. So I didn't know if they were afraid of that. Was it not in the whole?
No, they x-rayed me, but they x-rayed me up here. They
It wasn't that
didn't
close to
find
your
the
heart.
bullet for, well, John Fishnick when he was x-raying for,
That's gonna be
Something
the loudest
else.
thing to the microphone.
Oh, yeah, Lex, no.
John Fishnick said, "Slim, when have you had pneumonia?" I said, "I've never had pneumonia." And he says, "You got a scar through your lung, through your right lung." And pneumonia goes, and I says, "All of that scar." I says, "I've been shot." He pulled that scar and it come out and went up and hit my shoulder blade and come back down around. I still carry the bullet down there under the third rib. He folded it down and had it on the x-ray. He set the x-ray out in the hall where everybody could see it and everybody could buy. "Oh, he's been shot," and I'm laying there on the bed. "You've been shot." You can see the bullet in the x-ray. I says, "Yeah, but that was when I was a kid." That's when I was 14, I'm old now.
Didn't they make you stay in bed all summer?
Yeah,
Was
So
that
how
your
long?
Broken leg.
So was it 3 months?
he didn't let,
You said
I
3
don't know.
No, that's 3 weeks tied, but then they made him stay in bed,
Yeah,
and you grew, right?
I
I
thought
grew
that
an
was when
inch
he
and a
broke his
half.
leg.
You grew 1.5 inches.
I grew an inch and a half in 3 months. laying in
Are you
bed.
sure it's not more than 1.5 inches? I heard long, bigger.
I think he broke his leg, he stabbed his leg. with
I-
a knife.
I heard
I
6
can't
inches.
remember.
I always heard 6
It
inches.
was his dad.
Well, I grew 6 inches that year.
All that year.
Okay.
It was 6 inches that year, and not.
Not while you were
No,
laying
I
down?
grew 1.5 inches while I was laying.
Okay.
You just got up and put your pants on, right? And they were
Yeah,
they were floods.
yeah.
Did anyone give you a blessing
Oh, yeah,
right away?
yeah.
Who-
That's when
That's when
Uncle Hans,
my Uncle Hans, my grandfather's brother, come up. And he'd give me the blessing. And he told me I was gonna, he says, you're gonna live, you're gonna be all right. And the blessing. Losing service sitting there and says he's bleeding to death, he's gonna die. And I'm sitting there waiting to die. Didn't I blink my eyes, afraid I wouldn't open them. And he sat there all night. And when I wasn't dead by morning, well, he says, if he's still alive and I'd quit spitting blood, he says, don't let him move. If that's clotted over, don't let him move and break that clot. So they tied me to the bed for